Hi everyone. You're welcome to the platform again. Previously, we have looked virtually through some of the things we need to look at in the poem Caged Bird, written by Maya Angelou. So, in this regard, we are going to look at the last aspect of points to take note of in this poem today in this lesson. And this is going to be the themes in the poem. Let's see what the themes are. The first one is discrimination in our society. And precisely, this is targeted at the white and the blacks in the United States of America. So, in this poem, the poet creates two clear, contrasting images: freedom and bondage. In the first and fourth stanzas, we see a bird blissfully enjoying its freedom in the great outdoors, that is, in the sky. It uses the wind to aid its flights. That is, as the wind is blowing here and there, it's enjoying the flight and dares to take the sky. The bird is entirely at liberty to soar into the sky and go where it wills. On the contrary, the caged bird stalks in its narrow cage, where it is held in by bars of rage. Unlike the bird that ecstatically flies to any destination it pleases, the caged bird's wings are clipped because it is in the cage, and its feet are tied. Maya Angelou contrasts these images to cover, or let me say to convey, the theme of freedom and bondage. The birds are symbolic. The first bird, freed one, and the caged one, they are symbolic because they mean something tangible. The freed bird represents the whites in American society, while the caged bird represents the blacks in American society. So the whites were granted full constitutional rights and were allowed to enjoy all the benefits that come with them. On the other hand, the blacks were stripped of most of their rights, including basic human rights. The society was a very oppressive one, especially for the blacks. They were barred from many of the social amenities and benefits that the whites had easy access to. Consequently, um, they led difficult lifestyles, that is, the blacks. There was a sharp difference between the lifestyle of the whites and that of the blacks in the American society. The whites lived privileged, luxurious lifestyles, while the blacks were treated as the dregs of the society. That is why they are called niggers. This is reflected in the poem. While the free bird thinks of another breeze and feeds on fat worms, the caged bird stands on the grave of dreams and shouts on a nightmare scream. The expression fat worms vividly depicts the abundance and the privilege that the whites enjoy when compared to that of blacks. The bird feeds on fat ones, not sickly or stingy ones. The expression connotes abundance and opposed or as opposed to the caged bird, which has nothing to eat. The caged bird's wings are clipped, and so it cannot soar and it cannot take to the skies like its counterparts. In the same vein, while the whites had the confidence and, more importantly, the permission of the society to breed life into dreams, the blacks did not. Hence, just like the caged bird, who stands on the grave of dreams, the blacks were forced to watch their goals and aspirations fade into the obscurity. That is, they cannot actualize it. In the same vein that the cage bird shouts on a nightmare scream, the blacks made attempts to fight for themselves like Michael X did to express their dissatisfaction with the status quo. However, they were nothing but shadows in the society. They were unseen and unheard, and so for a long time their agitations were simply dismissed or met with force, as one we can see recently in the United States when the man was clipped down and died, still nothing is done. So that is that about discrimination in our society. And the second one is man's desire and longing for freedom, which is instinctive. This theme is also evident in the poem. Despite being clustered in a claustrophobic space that is practically all its life, the caged bird sings of freedom. And this same caged bird is unfamiliar with freedom, so it sings with a fearful thrill. Its sad song has undertone, that is, undertones of a fear because it does not know exactly what freedom is or what its implications are. The idea is mirrored in the third stanza, where the bird sings of things unknown but longs for still. So, by implication, the poet suggests that the yearning for freedom is instinctive. The inference from this idea it therefore is that it's unnatural for a man to put his fellow man in bondage. However, this is what obtained for many years in the American society. Blacks were they were carted away from their homelands to plantations in Haiti and other parts of the world. Many of them survived a torturous journey only to get to their destination and realize that they were doomed to live as slaves to white masters. After many years, slavery was abolished in American society, but the blacks continued to lead lives characterized by oppression and hardship, and they continued to years for freedom. This longing is one of the things that the poet seeks to represent in the poem. It can be inferred from the poem that the desire for freedom in man is instinctive. In the third and the last stanzas, the poet states that the bird sings of things unknown but long for still open. And in the same way, uh, the African Americans sought to be liberated from their oppressive status in society. Even though they had never enjoyed freedom and all its perks, they continued to fight for it. They understood that as humans, they deserve to be free to life, that is, to live their lives and bring their ideas into reality. That is about man's desire and longing for freedom. The next is limitation. By contrast, another theme that runs through this poem is the theme of limitation. It is almost interesting that themes of freedom and limitation are both important to the poet. The theme is important and significant because wherever there is freedom, it is usually at the expense of others who are in slavery. So, in this poem, the theme of limitation foregrounds the enslavement of African Americans for more than 300 years. The words caged, cut, and tied all represent different types of limitation. Lines 8 to 11 say, "But a bird that stocks or down is narrow cage can seldom see, that is see through, is bars of range. So the bird in this poem is limited in its inability to fly, even though it is a bird. The word bird, especially if it is a flying bird, collocates with words like fly, flew, perched, landed, and so on as seen in the poem. A bird hardly ever collocates uh, with stocks, and this marks the beginning of the theme of a limitation. It's not possible for birds to stock. The poetic persona emphasizes this bird's limitation by telling the readers that it is in a narrow cage, and it is used in the possessive to show that it is specifically for this bird, is narrow cage, through the use of his, HIS. A person does not willingly lock himself in a cage, as a cage is not a comfortable place. A cage is a contraption that physically limits whatever has been caged to the space within the cage. Yet, even in the space within the cage, the bird's ability to move around is still limited because the cage is described as a narrow cage, which is seen in line 9 of the poem. The cage bird is narrowed down in space, in dreams, in life, in opportunities and hope as well. The idea of the narrow cage is to make him narrow, both externally and internally. At the metaphorical level of this interpretation, such narrow space suggests the restriction of opportunities to excel in different levels of sphere of life. Line 10 also indicates that the cage bird can seldom see through its bars of reach. This implies that the cage bird is also limited in its ability to see into the future and shape its destiny. Apart from this, it is also blinded by the anger born out of its impotence and powerlessness to change the direction of its life. So this is about imitation as seen in the poem. And another one is music as a channel of protesting or showing emotion, action, and independence. This poem also exemplifies music as a channel of emotion, action, and independence. Music is also presented as a form of therapy. Emotions such as anger, pain, love, and fear and the legs can be transformed into different types of art forms, thereby creating genius and a cathartic effect in the artist. These art forms could be music, visual art, writing, dance, acting, and so on. In this poem, the poet describes the condition of the cage bird in detail, telling the readers about its clipped wings and its tied feet. In the face of all these terrible things done to the cage bird, it resorts to singing. So the poet shows the emotive capacity of music. Here, the music carries all the fear, pain, and anger of the caged bird within it and releases these emotions as it sings. The most pungent and vital aspects of this film find expression in the lines 19 to 35, where the poet in these two lines says that the caged bird's tune is heard. Beyond creating a channel through which the caged bird can be purged of its emotions, the music also creates a channel through which its voice can be heard. Examples of this can be seen even in the lives of African Americans during the period of slavery and after the emancipation of slaves in America. The slaves assigned to Strenuous labor in the cotton or tobacco fields usually used work songs to take their minds off the rigor and the stress of the work assigned to them by the white masters. Some of these work songs, apart from asking for God's help, were usually filled with jibes at the white masters, and this often made their work unbearable. That is, their mind is light. The song serves as a means of emotional stability for men who had been beaten severely by the owners, for women who had been raped repeatedly by the white colonial masters, or for children who had been taken from their slave parents and sold into slavery. Most of the slaves turned into religion, and the hymnal that spoke of a better world waiting for them in heaven. So they turned themselves to face their creator. These songs later evolved into soul, rhythm, and blues, jazz, and also a host of other types of music, each expressing the individual and collective experiences of the African American people, containing the sad, which is called as a blue, the experiences they had to go through, or with lively tunes that people could dance to and forget their sorrows. That is why you have blues in the music of American style today. The next is the benefit of limitation. When something is limited, we also have benefit from it. So it might seem ironic, but this poem also expresses the benefits of limitation. It is cogent that uh, for one to rise above limitation, one must be limited in the first place. That is, after the limitation, you have the breakthrough. Freedom indeed has good qualities, but it is the obstacle and oppositions in life that bring out the genius in man. That is, when you fall, you rise again. The description of the freed bird shows that it is enjoying freedom. It lives and soars and floats, but it is only doing that which is in its nature to do. But in reality, although the bird is free, its freedom makes it a mediocre and myopic in its nature to do. So, it will never try to go beyond its natural abilities, and it will never value the freedom that it already has. On the other hand, the caged bird has been oppressed since the beginning of its life, and this makes it value the things he has and the wishes to have. It is the limitation of the caged bird that leads to the song, that is, to the music. The caged bird is caged, but in its limitation, it realizes that it can sing. Although the caged bird is in a restricted space, it has made its voice to be heard. Its weaknesses, that is the lack of freedom, has propelled it to achieve something that the free bird, for all its freedom, can only hope to achieve. It is important to note also that African Americans have been able to overcome many of the obstacles that have come their way to become people worthy of reckoning in the American today. They are well represented in different fields. Education, we have Maya Angelou. Civil rights movement, we have Martin Luther King, that is the junior. Music, we have Tupac Shakur and Beyonce. Literature, we have James Baldwin. Law, we have Thurgood Marshall. Military, we have Daniel James Jr. Filmmaking, we have Tyler Perry. Politics, we have Barack Obama. And Earth, we have Ben Carson. among many other professions. If this African American had not come from a group of people that had been marginalized for so long, they might not have been inspired to work hard, to strive to be the best in their different fields of endeavor. Sometimes freedom comes with comfort that can stand as a bane to development. And this is why the freed bird does not seem to have a care in the world. The caged bird uses its limitation to attain a kind of freedom, while the freed one is limited by its freedom. Perhaps this is why it is caged bird that is immortalized in the mind of the reader through the title of the poem. The next one is the evil of life. The poet creates a moving image of bondage and confinement, unlike its counterpart, which flies without a care through the open sky. The cage bird stalks down its narrow cage. It is held in its prison with bars of rage, which also prevents it from seeing the outside world clearly. Besides, lines 12-13 further strengthen the image of severe restriction in this stanza. In these lines, we learn that the bird's wings are clipped and his feet are tied. The bird is not only locked in a stifling enclosure, its wings are also clipped to prevent him from ever spreading them even in the cage. His feet are also tied to make movement a difficult, that is, the movement a difficult and tedious activity. Thus, the image of complete and ruthless bondage is created in that scene. However, in the fourth stanza, the image of contentment and bliss is created as well. The freed bird thinks of another breeze and fat ones. Its life is one of leisure and pleasure. It has no worries, no cares. It simply flies wherever it chooses and eats whenever it wants to. A completely contrasting picture is painted in the fifth stanza. The Betafor Grave of Dreams, as seen in line 27, and the personification is Shadow Shouts in line 28, paint a dark moving picture. So this is about the evil of life. And lastly, um, natural environments. The poet uses clear and vivid descriptions of nature to create mental images of the freed bird. In the first stanza, nature is presented in all its glory and beauty. The movement of bird, that is the bird, as it leaps on the back of the wind, allows the reader to appreciate its freedom as it flies, unshackled around its natural habitat. Furthermore, the description of the orange rays of the sky foregrounds the beauty of nature. Thus, the image of freedom and the beauty of nature are created in this poem. This is how far we can go today in this lesson. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel, share the link, share the video, share the channel, enable the bell for notification on more videos to come, and do not forget to give a thumb up and always remain safe. Thank you.